Hello, Internet people. This is Patrick from Replit, and today I'm going to walk you through how to create a virtual coffee bot to match people up on your team or as part of your community so folks can interact and get to know each other. It's fantastic. I've been doing this for quite a while with Replit, also with some of the networking communities that I'm part of. I'm going to tell you a little bit about that. So first you might ask, well, what is a virtual coffee bot and why do I care about this? Simply put, if you're on Slack, you might want people to be randomly paired for coffee, say once a month or every couple weeks. So everybody gets to know each other for kind of one-on-one or like maybe small groups of three. It's fantastic for people to just get to relax. And it's great for virtual communities and virtual companies. All right, well, without further ado, let me jump in and I'll tell you a little bit about how this got started. So I'm part of a networking group for HR, finance, and ops folks in startups. The community is called Startup Experts. It's a fantastic community. If you're working in the field, strongly recommend checking it out, startupexperts.us, and you can apply here. And we were using the free version of Donut for a while. We're a free, no dues community of folks working in startups, in ops, HR, and finance, who just help each other out. And we've got a Slack community where people can kind of post jobs and ask questions and get answers and just connect. It's super helpful, but we were using Donut for a while. Donut's amazing. Highly recommend. They have a ton of features. They can really do a lot to help you connect your community, but we were just using their really basic kind of lunch pairing or virtual coffee pairing features. And one of the engineers on our team had actually built something for Replit. And I figured, well, rather than upgrade to the paid version, since we're kind of no dues, like nonprofit, no budget community, why don't I can just take and repurpose what one of our engineers had built for Replit, and we can use it for our community as well. So that's sort of what kicked all of this off. Donut's still great. They do a ton. If you need more than the basics and you don't want to code it, I recommend checking them out. If you just need the basics, just fork my REPL, and I'm going to walk you through exactly how to do that now. So jumping in, step one, and I'm going to take you step by step through this. It's super easy. You don't really need to be that advanced as a coder, although if you are, you can really kind of take this to the next level. All right, so the first step, and I'm going to link this REPL in my video, is you would just come in here to my REPL and you can fork it. You'll see an option here in Replit to go ahead and fork the REPL. And that means when you fork it, you'll get your own copy. You'll get all of the code that's in here, but you won't get any of my secrets or any of my private information. So what I recommend then is, and I'm going to post a version of this that is has like some reduced information too. But basically, let me walk you through the code briefly, and this is in JavaScript, so you can understand what's working at a high level. I'm not going to get too in the weeds. I'm more interested in showing you how to get this set up on Slack and working versus coding it directly from scratch, but I'll tell you exactly what everything is doing. So at the front, we're requiring a handful of packages. Express, we're requiring and installing the package for the Replit database. This is just to make sure that the groups are not getting repeated. I'll take you a little bit through the basics of the matching algorithm. We've got some packages to handle like shuffling and interacting with the file system and other things. And then here are our packages for the Slack API and the web API for Slack. So starting through some of the settings at the top, and you can cancel these or change them pretty easily. We're just saying our group sizes are 2. In the past at Replit, we actually did groups of 3. And you can say how many weeks should go by before groups are paired again. All right, then we're going to create the app and create a new Replit database. We'll have options for members and opting out. And then we're going to create some secrets. I'm going to come back to this and I'm going to explain what secrets we need, what kind of hidden keys, and I'm going to blur it out so you won't be able to see my exact secrets, but this will let you kind of connect this to your Slack app, and I'll take you through that in a second. Then you're going to initialize it. You're going to tell it to start the app, and then here in Slack events.on, you are kind of setting it up and starting to listen for mentions, for app mentions. If you like use the @mention functionality in Slack, you'll see this, and I'll explain a little bit later exactly what that's going to look like. And if you type in the word generate, it's going to run the function generate groupings, and I'll take you through the basics of what that looks like. And basically, it's going to do its job. If you say @mention virtual coffee generate, if you say anything else, it's going to say, I don't know what you mean. Type in the word generate, and then it's going to post the message. So it's pretty simple at a high level. Here's Morgan and Slack events, some of the setup and listening. I'm just kind of sending in my like hosted REPL, just saying I need coffee. This is what you're seeing over here. When you run this for the first time, you'll see I need coffee up here, and log into the console that the server has started. So here's the console in the REPL. So your hosted REPL, you'll see I need coffee. You'll see any console messages that are in here if there are errors or things like that. Okay. All right, as we're kind of coming through, we're setting up kind of the group, and all right. This generation function is how we're setting up the app to handle the pairs and to make sure that there are not duplicates. So the way that we handle that right now is that we've got a database of all of the pairs, and it's just a simple key value store database in Replit. So if Patrick was meeting with Megan, who's somebody on my team, it would say Patrick and Megan, and it would say the generation that we met. So if I run this 1 month, that would be generation 1. If I run it again the next month, generation 2, generation 3, et cetera. So every month, every time I run this, the generation is updating, and it's going to check if it tries to match Megan and Patrick again. It's going to see when was the last time that they were matched, and were they matched more than 10 times ago, because that's what we set up here weeks before repeat. So pretty simple, pretty elegant way to just make sure that you're getting some variety in your groups. All right, so now if I go ahead and generate the next groupings, I'm going to take the members and we'll do the next generation. So we update that now that you're running it again. And I'm starting a new blank array for just the pairings that ultimately come out. So it's simple. I'm just running through the members. There's some limitations to what we're doing right now, and I'll talk through the end what some of those limitations are. In fact, I even have a little note to myself here to come back and make some of those changes. But basically, it's going to run through the groups, and it's going to keep trying to pair them. And if it finds that there's no more groups left, it's just randomly pairing people up. If it gets to the end and it can't pair anybody, it just starts again. So this is not the most elegant way to handle this necessarily. And if it doesn't run, if it doesn't find groups, either because there's not enough members, you've got too many weeks, things like that, it'll just kind of run forever. So we have not built it to handle that use case. Because this is a small group, because I'm manually running this once a month, have not overbuilt this or over-engineered it to handle every edge case. It's just simple. It pairs folks, and if it doesn't work, I stop it and I run it again. And it's going to record the groups in the database down here, and then it just checks to see all the members in the REPL. And I'm going to explain to you in a second here sort of what is included in the members.json file, so you can see what that information is. All right. So let's keep diving in, and I just want to explain how it's working so you can kind of dig in, explore on your own, and feel free to make any changes if you do fork this and use it. All right. So the next step to get started is going to be to create a Slack app, and then add that app to a channel in Slack. So let me show you how to create a new app in Slack. It's pretty simple. It's pretty easy. I'm going to come over to the Slack API. And Slack's great for remote teams and for communicating. Use it all the time, every day. Even have a group with some of my friends. And as I said, with the Startup Experts professional group too. So lots of good information here, documentation on the Slack API. some basic tutorials to get started. And you can just go here and you can create a new app and it'll take you right in. All right. So here I am, and I'm going to create a new app. You can use kind of some manifest files. I would just go ahead and create it from scratch here. I'm going to call this app test. I'm going to delete this one, but I'll just let you know how it's working. And I might say, all right, I'm going to do this for the Startup Experts one as well. So I can go ahead and create this app. And you've just created an app. I'm going to walk you through what some of the basic information is in here and how to set up the app. And I'm going to walk you through that kind of back and forth between this test app and the virtual coffee app that I already have set up and working. All right. So here's just the basic information. Here's some ways that you can set it up. You can take webhooks or things like that. We're going to be listening for events from the Slack API. That's what we're including up here, Slack Events API. So there's different ways to build apps. So what I have set up with the app that we've created is event subscriptions. So we're listening for events from Slack. So this, when it gets kind of mentioned, it's going to kind of trigger the app and it'll take certain actions. Bots, this is just so people can app mention it. This is pretty basic. And then permissions controls what it can do. And generally the best practice with permissions is to only give it permissions for what you are currently letting it do or what you intend to let it do in a kind of future update, so that you're not changing this too often and you're not giving it more permissions than it actually needs. All right. If I scroll down here too, you can see some basic information about the app ID, when it was created, client ID, your secrets as well. And I'll show you kind of which secrets we're using. I'm going to blur these out so you won't be able to see them on the final video. And they just have some more information, how the app is going to be displayed, etc. You can create a description. You can add a little image for the app if you like. If you're doing a coffee bot, maybe you want a little coffee cup or something like that. Pretty easy stuff. All right. So let's go in and add the app to a channel in Slack. So I'm going to jump over here to our Slack. I'm in my work Slack space now. I've got a bunch of messages I'll need to respond to, but I'll do that later. And I'm going to come over here to the Startup Experts Slack group. And as you can see in here, I've created a channel called Test Virtual Coffee. This is not our real channel, but this is where I might test things out. So the first thing you're going to want to do when you're adding an app is you'll come over here to the top right. You'll click on the kind of icon with people's faces. Come over here to integrations. Megan is somebody on my team. And then what I'll do is I will add an app here. And if I had kind of published this to the space, so getting test spots, but I might say, I'll have to publish it to the workspace and then I would see it here. Let's come back. So if I go now to install the app. Once you add features or permissions, you'll be able to install the app in the workspace. Then you'll be able to see it here and you can very easily install it. As you can see, I've already installed my virtual coffee working app here. It's set up, it's working in the channel, and I'll kind of explain how that's working in just a second here. All right. So when you're setting up the app, there's a handful of kind of things going on. I've already talked about the basic information for the app. As I said too, when you go to install the app, once you've set up some basic permissions and everything else you kind of need, then you'll be able to install the app pretty easily. This is already installed, so I won't need to reinstall it to the workspace. And let me take you through then some of the basic information on app home, Oauth and permissions, and event subscriptions. And I'm going to take you through those secrets that I talked about in the REPL before too. All right, so if I go to app home, you'll just see some very basic information for the app. So here's my app display name, etc. I always want to show my bot as online, so it'll show up kind of in the list of like members in the community. I don't need a home section for this. This is just going to get app mentioned from the channel. And in fact, in this community, I'm going to be the only one at mentioning this once a month. So just very basic information there. And the next thing you'll want to see is Oauth and Permissions for the app. Okay, so if I go to Oauth and Permissions, I can get the Oauth token for my workspace. So when you install this to your Slack workspace, it'll automatically generate this token. It'll start with XOXB. I'm going to blur this out, but I can go ahead and I can copy this token. And you'll need this to make sure that when the app is talking to Slack API, that it is indeed your app and not somebody that's pretending to be you or spoofing it. So keep these things secret. And let me install this before I go further on that. And if I come back over to my bot, you'll see in the sidebar in Replit some of the secrets and environment variables here. So I have the Slack token and I have the Slack signing secret. So XOXB 14086, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And this will be blurred out as well, is the Oauth token for Slack and my REPL bot to communicate with one another. So I can go ahead and I can copy this from Slack, and I will paste this into my REPL in the secret, and I'll save that. And then while I'm here, I'll want to get the Slack signing secret as well. And let me come back here. And if I go back to the basic information about my app, here is the signing secret. And you can see here, and this will be blurred out as well, but lo and behold, these numbers match. So the Slack signing secret here and the signing secret here on basic information for your app. And you'll copy that and paste it in. Just a heads up as well, if you fork my REPL, these secrets are not going to be here. You'll need to go ahead and add new secrets, and the key needs to exactly match. Slack _ signing _ secret and Slack _ token. You can see these here, Slack signing secret, Slack _ token. You can copy from here, paste it in. It'll need to exactly match, so you can't have any typos or anything like that. Similar with the values also. The great thing about this is when I put this REPL out in public so people can see the code and interact with it, nobody will be able to see your secrets. So it'll keep it private. So great functionality inside of Replit to keep things safe and secure. All right, back to the code. And we were going through the OAuth and the signing secrets. Let me come down to some of the other permissions. So if I go back to Oauth and Permissions, and as I'm scrolling down the page, and as I mentioned before too, you'll need to set up these scopes and these permissions before you'll be able to install that app into your Slack workspace. So the different channels you might, or the different permissions you might need, like app _ mentions read, this means that your bot can view messages that mention @virtualcoffee in conversations that the app is in. So this is important if you're going to be sending messages to your app. You can see basic information about the channels that you're in. So it might be like the name of the channel or things like that. Chat write allows you to write back. So this is important too, since I want to send the groups back to Slack. If I just wanted to listen for things and then maybe update a website or something like that, I wouldn't need the write permission necessarily, but generally you're going to want to reply back into Slack and let whoever sent that message or interact with your bot in Slack if that something happened. Users read. So this is not something that I'm using right now, but it is something that I would like to add in a future version of this app. So right now, when I get the users in Slack, and I'm going to publish a version of this without all the users information public, and this will be blurred out as well when you see the video. But basically, I have everybody's name and their Slack ID. And let me just jump over to Slack to show you where I got this. So I'm in Slack now. I can come over here. I can view the members of the channel. I can see here's my name. I can go and view the full profile. If I come down here more, here's my member ID. I can copy that member ID, and I've got Patrick Coleman, Slack, and then the member ID. As I said, this will all be blurred out. It's pretty simple to do. I haven't yet updated the Slack bot so that it can pull that information automatically. And I haven't set up the bot on a timer, so it'll run automatically once a month. That'll be for future versions of this, and I'll talk about some of the changes that I might be able to make when I get to the end of the tutorial. But very simple. You can go in there, you can update it, and I'll just check that again once a month. And but this permission will let me kind of read that automatically. All right, and then you can have some more settings here. I haven't kind of messed with that or set anything up. If you feel like any of your secrets are invalidated, you can revoke and reinstate your tokens here. You get a new token here, and just remember, if you ever do that, to copy that and add it back to your secrets in the REPL. All right, so the next thing I want to tell you guys about are the event subscriptions. Let me go ahead and jump down here too. Okay. All right, so it's important that your Slack bot is able to listen to events coming from Slack. So when you app mention it, it's going to send an event via the API, and it needs to know where to send that. So what you need to do then is you need to paste the URL of your REPL into the field here. So if I go over to my REPL, you can see it's https://virtualcoffee.patrick@replit.repl.co. Everything is going to be, the name of the REPL dot your username.repl.co. And you can go ahead and copy this here. And when I set up the Slack events and the Slack web client, it's going to kind of create these extensions on the URL for me. So when I go ahead and paste it, it's important to note that after the URL from your REPL, type /slack/events, and that'll make sure that it is listening and talking on the right place. So when an event gets triggered in Slack, it's going to send an HTTP post request to that URL. It's going to listen for those post events on this URL, and then it's going to, in my code, going to trigger this app mention with the event, and then I can get the event's text and see what it says. All right. So that's kind of the basics of setting up the app. So if you didn't follow along entirely, recommend listening through one more time. Should be easy to do. If you're using an app just like the one I built, if you do all these things, this will work well in your community. All right. So the next thing to do is to run your REPL and to test it. All right, so we set up the Slack bot. We set up the secrets. We told it to listen at the URL for our REPL. We've got the code. We've got some of the users in our group loaded into the JSON file. JSON is just a kind of data storage format for JavaScript. And then it's time to run it. So mine is already running. And just by the way, I've got this with always on and boosts. These are some extra features for Replit for hacker plans for our subscription plan. And always on means that the REPL will just stay running all the time. Boosts means that it gets some extra resources. These are some fun things. This is a simple app, so you may not need a boost necessarily, but I felt like putting it on. And then always on is pretty nice, especially if I had made that change I was talking about to make it run automatically every month. Then you would have the boost. But pretty simply, I could also run this again every month and then call it from Slack. You'll see a big green run button here. And then when you run it for the first time, remember too, you want to see I need coffee up in the browser window in the REPL. And then you'll want to see in the console server started. That's how you'll know that it's working. Cool. So once that's going, you can start app mentioning your app, and you'll be able to app mention it in any of the channels in that Slack workspace that you added it to. So I mentioned before that I created a test virtual coffee. This is a great place to test things out. So you can see when I first installed it, it wasn't fully set up. So I've got some of these. And then finally, after I kind of set all the settings, I app mentioned virtual coffee, I type generate, and it spit out the groups for Patrick and for Megan. And you can see that if I say something else, it's going to respond back with, here's the command, virtual coffee generate, and that will generate the coffee pairings and send the invites. It's a very kind of simple and easy app. And I'll blur out people's names in here. But basically now when I run this once a month, it will generate everyone's names and pairings in the group, and it'll make sure that they aren't matched again with the same people for 10 weeks. Super simple, super easy. My plan is to go in here once a month and do that. And then on the 15th of the month, I'll come in here and I'll just say, hey, everyone, it's a gentle reminder to schedule something with your partner if you haven't already. So super simple, super easy, and lots of room to like kind of build and improve on this. And now if I jump back to the presentation, you can see that we're up and running. So what would be some of the things that you might improve in the app? And if you do make some of these improvements and share it, would love it if you go to replit.com, you share this in the App Store on Replit, so other people can see and benefit from it. I'm going to make a version of this available here too. And then, or just kind of paste this in the YouTube videos, one or the other or both, so that other people can kind of benefit and see what you did, learn from you, and keep kind of sharing and paying it forward. All right, so some of the things that I might want to improve. So as I said before, this doesn't run automatically every month. So I might want to add some new packages and libraries, related to time, so that I can say every month on the first of the month, send the pairings out, and then once again, reply back to that message on the 15th and send a reminder. And once again, because everybody's app mentioned in Slack, if I just reply to that message thread, it'll show up in everybody's threads in their Slack. Some other things that I might want to build out and improve. I mentioned that I was manually typing in people's names and Slack IDs in the members.json file. We got a small group, so this really didn't take too long for me at all. And it's not changing a whole lot on a month-to-month basis. I'm part of some other professional networking communities, things like growth and marketing that have like thousands of members. If we were doing something like this, then you would definitely want to automate this. Please don't spend time like manually typing things in for 1,000 folks, but if it's just a handful, sometimes it's faster to do it the manual way. And so that would be a nice update to go and do. There's a couple other things that I might want to improve. Notably, there's nothing in here to handle odd numbers of individuals. So if folks are in an odd number, this will just run forever. As I mentioned before too, there's nothing really handling what happens if groups can't be paired. So it just starts the whole process again. You might want to say like, it keeps going back and trying to pair the remaining groups until it finds it. So there's some other more elegant approaches that you could take here. You could get kind of fun and crazy with the algorithm. If you invent something really cool, maybe you have a business or a startup idea in there. But as I said, this is simple and basic. Just trying to get something shipped fast so that we can use it for our community. And I'm sure you might have other kind of fun and crazy ideas. You could add more messages in here. You could add more functionality. One thing that we were using at Replit that I ended up deleting when I used it for this group is we actually took in everybody's email addresses and we integrated with Google. So it would automatically send out calendar invites at noon Pacific on Thursdays. Since everybody was in the same company, this was pretty easy. For the Startup Experts group, everybody's in different time zones and working for different companies. So it doesn't really make sense to just drop a meeting on somebody's calendar. But there's tons of things you can do. And that's sort of the beauty of coding versus using a SaaS tool or something like that, is you have as much kind of freedom and ability to express your creativity as you have knowledge and capability, which for me, as a business person is not that much. I did get a meaningful amount of help from one of our engineers, and actually one of my business interns who does a lot of marketing stuff is still studying marketing in school. She built a simple Slack bot that just pings a message to everybody, and she was helping me a lot with this too. So it's great. It's fun to collaborate. It's fun to work with others. Hopefully this generated some good ideas for you. As I said, if you build something cool, if you make this better, please share it on Replit apps. Please share it in the YouTube comments. Would love to see it. Have a great day and happy coding.